All right, the time has come to officially add some true, proper visualizations to this dashboard. Now remember, there are a few ways to do it. Number one, from the home menu, click New Visual. As you can see, it's defaulted in this case to a stacked column. That's not what I want, so I'll press Delete. Instead of going with the home menu route, I generally choose my visualizations straight from the visualizations pane. So in this case, I'd like a stacked bar chart specifically. And when you click and select a chart template, a few things happen. First, you'll see that it drops a template or placeholder for that chart right there in your canvas. And second, it populates these fields as well as formats that are specific to the chart type that you're using. So again, this pane is dynamic. Right now it's telling me that a stacked bar chart can take in an axis, a legend, values, color saturation, and tooltips. But if we change this chart type to something else, like a stacked area, you'll see these values change, or funnel, or scatter. So these are all dynamic, and they're all tied to the specific chart type. So let's jump back to our stacked bar and start actually populating this. Remember, we're always going to start here in fields because this tells Power BI what data we want to visualize and exactly how we want to visualize it. So what I'd like to visualize here is total orders, that measure we created in our sales table. So let's go ahead and grab that measure. And the first option is to click, hold, and drag it into value and drop it there. And as you can see, it's populated the chart with a single series of values, total orders, with the grand total, just one bar. Now remember that if you want to format a field, you can do that here. Select total orders, modeling. In this case, let's add a comma to it. And now as you hover over, you'll see that the format has changed. So this is nice, but not very helpful. It just shows a single bar. So the idea here is that it will be helpful to break this data down and analyze the total orders in some interesting ways. And I know that AdventureWorks is very interested in their subcategory level performance. So let's go ahead and break down this chart by product subcategory name. And now remember how we clicked and dragged the values field? You can also try clicking the box and Power BI will say, okay, what's the most appropriate place where I can populate that field that you just checked? In this case, it puts it on my axis of the bar chart, which is actually exactly what I want. It breaks down my total orders, and now I've got a field or a dimension for subcategory on each row. And it's automatically defaulted to sorting descending. Tells me that tires and tubes is the highest order driving subcategory, followed by road bikes, helmets, mountain bikes, etc. But just to get a sense of what these other options could do, what if we took subcategory name and instead of dragging it to axis, we dropped it on the legend? Well, that completely changes the visual, and it basically shows the grand total segmented out with a different legend value for each of the subcategories. So not the proper chart type here. I mean, it's kind of nice to look at, but it's not very helpful. So we're going to take that legend, drag it back to axis, because that's what we want. Now we know what values do. Values is almost always where you're going to pull your measures in. And now what about color saturation? If you're curious about what that does, honestly, the best way to learn this stuff is to just try it out and see how it looks. So let's grab our total revenue measure here, drag it into color saturation, and look at that. The chart itself is still showing the same data, but now as you hover over, it's giving you an additional piece of information, which is the actual revenue in addition to the orders. And not only that, but it's visualized in a subtle but very effective way the relative revenue of each of these subcategories. So they're still ordered by the order volume, but now you see these darker blue lines represent the subcategories driving the most revenue. In this case, road bikes drove 11.3 million in revenue, mountain bikes 8.6, touring bikes 3.8, and then these lighter shades are smaller amounts. So that's color saturation, which is a really nice way to add an additional level of data without making the chart overwhelmingly busy. And now we also have this option called tooltips here. And to show you what that does, let's grab total profit and drag it into tooltips. And you'll notice that nothing changes except the title now reflects total orders, total revenue, and total profit, which is the tooltip field that we just added. Now all it does is add a third piece of information to this box that pops up when you hover over. That's what Power BI calls a tooltip. So now by simply hovering over and interacting with this chart, I'm getting information about order volume, about revenue, and about profit broken down at the subcategory level. So very, very little effort. And we've already created a lot of very interesting insight with one simple visual. And trust me, it's only going to get better from here.